Good morning. Welcome to Gimpy's History Corner, named after what my two grandsons call me. Here's a picture of Archie and Ellis getting ready to have lunch downtown. Archie's showing off his toy. Two good boys. I meant to show you this last time when we did Teddy Roosevelt. This is Casey, my son's partner, who live in Manhattan. We visited Teddy Roosevelt's museum there on Oyster Bay. And this is his Rough Rider uniform. So you can see he wasn't very tall. Okay, so what's today's history video about? It's about Tammany Hall in New York City, the Tammany Machine. Tammany Hall and the creation of modern American politics by Terry Galloway. Okay, here we go. All right, Tammany Hall started in 1786 as the Society of St. Tammany of Columbian Order. What a name. It started on Nassau Street in Manhattan. It was named for a Lenape Indian chief named Tamaned, founded by a guy named William Mooney. It was created to counter what they saw as the elitist Society of Cincinnati, which was started by George Washington and his Revolutionary War generals, who became the Federalist Party. And Mooney saw this as the rich and powerful class of American society, and he wanted to create something that was more for the lower and middle class. It promoted native-born and democratic values. It aligned with Aaron Burr, if you remember that video I did on him, and the Democratic Republican Party led by Thomas Jefferson. It evolved into the Democratic Party machine of New York City. Its first big step was in the 1840s and 50s. The Irish had the potato famine. Millions of them spread throughout the world to other countries, but many of them came to New York City. And the Tammany Hall organized the Irish and organized them into voting blocks. They provided food, coal for their keep their apartments warm, and jobs to Irish who were thankful for that and responded by voting for their candidates. They dominate hiring in the Manhattan police and the fire departments and the sanitation departments. Now, something really weird happened with the fire departments. You had these volunteer fire departments of Irish men who were almost like gangs. And when an alarm would go out for a fire, the gangs would compete to get there first to put the fire out. And they became violent, beating each other up to put the fire out. I don't know how that got started. That's crazy. It started with simple egos and male competitiveness. One of the leaders of one of those was a guy named Tweed. His last name was Tweed. I think his first name was William. And he was very good at beating out the other fire department crews. Again, these were not employed city employees. These were volunteer fire departments. But he got into New York City government, Board of Supervisors, where he learned to manipulate contracts and spending. It's like all great things. You get an organization, a hierarchy, and people learn to manipulate and be corrupt. He was named the Grand Sachem of Tammany Hall in the 1860s and the head of the Democratic Party. He created what was called a Tweed Ring, which was a group of men who conspired to do fraudulent invoices, inflated contracts, and kickbacks. Kickbacks was the big thing. Get a contract for a construction job, and you give a large amount of money to the Tweed Ring. Now, at this time, there was a lot of magazines around the country. Harper's Weekly was a big one. And they had a cartoonist named Thomas Nast. I'm sure you've seen his work before. He's the one that kind of created the 1800s version of Santa Claus. He also was a political cartoonist and a satirist, and he did anti-Tweed Ring cartoons showing Tweed as a overstuffed, corrupt person taking money from all over the place. He was followed, Thomas Nast and Harper's Weekly inspired other reformers in the 1870s and journalists to expose the Tweed Ring. Tweed was arrested, put on trial, and convicted. He went to jail, but he escaped somehow and ended up in Spain. Why Spain? I don't know. He was an Irishman. He was recaptured, came back to the United States, went back to jail where he died in 1878. Who were the most successful Tammany Hall politicians? Richard Croker in the 1880s and 90s, who followed Tweed. Al Smith was probably the most well-known. He became governor of New York, did a lot of good reforms for the common person. He was actually a presidential candidate in 1928. He was the first Catholic presidential candidate in the United States. And you remember this was time during Prohibition. So he was Irish Catholic, and Irish Catholics like to drink alcohol. That's not fair to say all of them do, but quite a few of them do, I guess. So he did not win, but he was buddies with Franklin Roosevelt, which I did a video on yesterday. Jimmy Walker was a famous mayor of New York City from 1926 to 32, and he embodied the Jazz Age image of glamour and corruption. James Hines also was powerful in Tammany Hall, and he had ties to the mafia and Lucky Luciano. As New York City always does, it reinvents itself. Groups of people, nationalities move. The Irish started moving out of Manhattan, being replaced by Puerto Ricans and Italians. Reformers like Mayor LaGuardia came in. Thomas Dewey was a prosecuting attorney. Robert Moses was the one who built all the big highways through Manhattan, wiped out neighborhoods. And they were against machine politics. So with the Irish moving out and these reform politicians moving in, FDR, when he was governor of New York, started a committee called the Hofstadter Committee, who investigated Tammany Hall and, of course, found a lot of people guilty of corruption. They dissolved Tammany Hall in 1967. The building itself got converted to theater, retail, movie theater, things like that. They started out on Nassau Street, which is near the bottom of Manhattan, moved to 14th Street, and the famous Tammany Hall is 44 Union Square East in Manhattan. And that building actually opened in 1929. The building sold in 1943. As I said, it was influenced, the influence of the Irish waned, and it was turned into a theater for film and retail. So, Tammany Hall, very famous political corruption organization in New York City. Made the Irish powerful for a while, but it's a thing of the past. I'm not saying New York City politics is not still corrupt. Holy mackerel, you see mayors and politicians arrested almost every day in New York City. My son and his partner Casey live in New York City. They love it. They have a great time. But they have to deal with all this stuff. Okay, the next video will be on another Irish Catholic later on. That's Bobby Kennedy. Hey, my Reds won last night. They beat the Brewers. I told you, maybe miracles do happen. Woo. Now they're tied with the Mets for a spot in the playoffs. They have a couple more games. Come on, Reds. Keep winning. Thank you.